Everyone, factoring into today's video, we're going to do a bit of a longer range look ahead today. Going to have a look at the charts from the South Korean model. They are back. I was emailed the link to the website where the South Korean model charts are being kept now over the weekend, so you'll be able to see all of the charts in a moment. We're going to be extending out to January with this, broken down into monthly periods. There's a lot more information now available from the South Korean model than we used to get when I used to use it a few months ago, so a lot of very interesting charts coming up, and then we'll have a look at weather for the coming week to 10 days. It's also going to be seeing a little bit more mobility coming into the Atlantic as we go through into the first week of August. We'll have a look at all the charts in a moment. Before I get on with that though, just to mention the advertising, there's video ads on my pages at gaswebbies.com. Hit play on the video ad, be supporting gaswebbies.com. Thanks very much for doing that. So we'll start off with the 500 millibar flow charts, break down into monthly periods from the South Korean one. Just say find the link to this on my links page. We're going to start with August. First of all, rates are indicating above average heights. Red colours are above average heights, which extrapolates high pressure. The blue colours are below average heights, which extrapolate to lower than average heights or low pressure. So for August, the model is seeing quite a lot of ridging in the Atlantic, actually, out to the west of the country and perhaps up to the northwest as well. Trough of low pressure perhaps to the north of Scandinavia, and fairly weak pressure to the south. So on the surface, that looks pretty good, really, an anomaly for August. But I think what we're at risk at with that is maybe getting some lower pressure coming up from the south and the southwest at the time. Nevertheless, that is a fairly warm sort of signal for August, and a lot of dry weather would be included with that. As we go through to September, we see a more typical pattern, really. We've got low pressure setting up to the north of the country, certainly enhancing the jet stream, but we've got a ridge of high pressure sitting down to the southwest. The jet stream, I'll get rid of them and show you where the jet stream is running through more or less to the north of the country again, so it's running through something like that. It's a pretty traditional sort of September type setup, actually. There'd be a lot of dry and fine weather down to southwest, but it would be more unsettled up to the north, and we'd be at risk of low pressure coming in at times from the north and the northwest. So fairly typical sort of September, really, in terms of the 500 millibar flow chart for that month. Now, as we go through to October, things get a little bit more interesting for October, because we're sending the high pressure up to the north of the country, centering it over Iceland and Greenland. Got a deep trough of low pressure then developing to the east and northeast of the country, and that sort of extends out into the Atlantic a little bit as well. I think we're looking at potentially a very unsettled month there for October, and potentially quite cool as well, because I think we would be at risk at times of seeing the winds coming from a northerly, maybe northeasterly direction with that sort of a setup. So I can tell you that the temperature anomaly showed that we're still just about warmer than average for October, and August and September are warmer than average as well. It's shown that we're just about warmer than average for October, but I think in the actual event that this sort of flow chart came off, we would be looking probably at a cooler than average month. So October could be cooler than average on this sort of setup. It could be quite unsettled in the east as well. We're near that trough of low pressure sitting to the east of the country, so that could be quite an unsettled sort of signal. For November, the below average heights actually move over and to the west of the country, so that's a more typical setup. Really got high pressure there down around the Azores as well. The winds are going more westerly with that. It's quite an unsettled looking month again for November. I think we'll see some rain coming in off the Atlantic fairly frequently. Excuse me, and we'd probably be at risk against some strong winds as well. Of course, November is the month where we do tend to get a lot of autumn sort of gales. I think we would be in for that type of a pattern on this setup. But it's not as potentially chilly as we see for October. I think it's more Atlantic based, really, with that trough of low pressure round and to the west of the country through to November. Notice as well, we've got the below average height sitting to the south of Greenland there also, and around Newfoundland, just telling us that generally the Atlantic flow is strengthening. It's jet stream pushing across the Atlantic like that, and then coming into the British Isles, something like that. So a pretty westerly sort of typical type pattern for November. As we go through to December, again, it's a very flat sort of pattern for December. We see the area of above average heights again strengthening to the south, quite a big area of high pressure to the south of the country through the Azores, reaching in towards Iberia. We've got the trough of low pressure, again more or less centred over Scandinavia, but it extends back into the Atlantic. At times I think we would be seeing the risk of some northwesterly influences, but overall that's a pretty flat westerly setup again being predicted by the South Korean model. The jet stream is doing something like that, so I don't think it's an overly cold month by any means. It would be quite a mild December. Also, though, there would be the risk of heavy bouts of rain and gales coming in at times. And we could get cold snaps on this, with the centre of the trough being centred really to the northeast of the country over Scandinavia. We would at times be at risk of seeing some northerly type cold snaps, but not a cold month. I think the temperatures would be coming out average, probably above average, to be honest, with that type of setup. And then as we get through to January, this is as far as we can go ahead with the South Korean model. The 500 millibar high anomaly flow chart for January shows that again we've got a very deep trough of low pressure to the east and northeast. A big trough there setting up now over Scandinavia. It's slightly subtly different, and it's a colder scenario for us for January, because although we've still got this area above average height sitting around Iberia to the south of the country, we do extend them back into the Atlantic much more. So we're taking a ridge from the from Greenland and Iceland and Newfoundland and extending it down in towards Spain and Portugal, in towards Iberia. And then we've got that trough of low pressure to the northeast of the country. So we're at risk of a colder influences there, because we're sort of blocking off the Atlantic flow, we're blocking off the jet stream. So it's not a desperately cold month, I don't think, with the high pressure still sort of centred over Spain and Portugal, but it's certainly colder than December, and at times we will be at risk, if this is right, of northerly or northwesterly influences. I'm not going to show you all the temperature and precipitation charts that go with these 500 millibar high anomaly charts. I'll just show you the temperature profile for December and January. This is what we're looking at. For December, a milder than average month there, as I explained, with a sort of flat westerly flow off the Atlantic, bringing the jet stream through the country. Basically, it's overall it's a mild month, but there is risk of cold snaps mixed in. Notice all this warm water through the equatorial Pacific, all these warm temperatures, I should say, through the equatorial Pacific. That's where we've got the warm water rising up with the signal of the El Niño along the equator in the Pacific. So the South Korean model, like all the other longer range models, is seeing this El Niño coming on as we get through towards the end of the year. It's a very delayed El Niño. It's struggling to get going, but all the models are very bullish that eventually it will get going as we go through the latter part of the summer and into the autumn. I'll do another update on El Niño as we get through into August to see what the latest is. As we go through to January, again, we've still got that signal for an El Niño, so it does look like being an El Niño winter, but notice how things are a lot colder in January across northwestern parts of Europe. We've got all this blue over Scandinavia, that's where we've got that deep trough of low pressure, and the colder temperature anomalies do extend down into the British Isles as well. You can't make it out all that clearly actually, so maybe if I move in on this, zoom in a little bit, might be able to make it out a bit better. Let's go right in and see what's happening across northwestern Europe, and you can see it's definitely looking cold for Scandinavia there by the time we get through to January, and those colder anomalies are extending down into the British Isles. Well, actually we're near normal, colder than average perhaps a little bit for the north, but near normal down in the south. That is a colder signal than we have for December, and the reason that's happening, as I say, is that we're blocking off the Atlantic, building a mid-Atlantic ridge really, and that would have the effect of turning winds much more into a northerly type direction. Anyway, that's just some of the charts you can see from the South Korean model. I've got to thank James Acrill for emailing me the link to the South Korean model over the weekend. You'll be seeing much more of the Korean model over the next few weeks and months. If you want to check out the charts for yourself, there's a lot of information there that I haven't been able to show you today because of time constraints on the video. So there are many more charts still to look at. There's a lot of probability maps that are very, very interesting. So if you want to check out the South Korean model, go to the links page. You'll be able to check it out for yourself. We'll be looking at the South Korean model a lot, I think, over the next few weeks and months. Finally coming back to have a look at the weather for the next 8 to 10 days, and it's turning more unsettled. As I said at the start of the video, there is signs of more Atlantic mobility. So here we go on Friday the 1st of August, and we've got a trough of low pressure beginning to move down from the northwest on the GFS. That actually starts to push southwards as we go through into the weekend. It all becomes rather flabby, but I think it is turning more unsettled as we're going through into the weekend. Going through into the start of next week, we begin to try to push some low pressure in off the Atlantic, but there's a little bit of a ridge trying to build to the east on Monday the 4th. It doesn't get far, actually, and this low pressure from the Atlantic pushes that high pressure, that ridge, very quickly out of the way on Tuesday next week. And then we're into a proper sort of Atlantic flow, and as we go through to Thursday the 7th, day 10, bring quite a deep area of low pressure, quite a deep Atlantic storm system in from the west. There's a lot of heavy rain associated with that. That's the precipitation forecast for Thursday the 7th of August. Heavy bouts of rain coming in off the Atlantic. So definitely signs of westerlies coming back a little bit, I think, as we're going through into the first week of August. The ECMWF shows this trough again coming down from the north and the northwest on Friday. Will be at risk of bringing showers or longer spells of rain down across the country from Friday into the weekend. The low pressure is right over the country as we go through in Saturday the 2nd. It's a shallow low pressure, so I don't think we'll be seeing particularly strong winds with this, and I think it is more showery as opposed to areas of persistent rain. But with light winds, of course, those showery bursts of rain could be quite slow moving. Worst of it probably up in the north and the northwest, but some I think will get down to the south and the southeast at times. And then as we go through into the start of next week, that's when we begin, got to get my teeth in, when we begin to bring those westerlies back in off the Atlantic. So as we move through to Monday the 4th, we're bringing this low pressure in, the westerlies are earning, and that could settle us then into rather an unsettled pattern as we go through next week with the low pressure out to the west of the country. Here's the day 10 chart for Thursday the 7th of August, with low pressure sitting to the northwest of Scotland from a westerly flow coming in across the country. That would be cooler than we've experienced through quite a bit of July. It would also be rather unsettled as well. So it does look as though, at least for a time, through the start of August, the westerlies are coming back. Could turn more unsettled. We'll have a look at the 8 to 10 day charts tomorrow. I think we'll have a detailed 8 to 10 day outlook, but I think we are looking at a more unsettled phase as we start August. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.